Okay, we're good. Welcome everyone to the view from here, behind enemy lines. Mike and I are pleased to have Kira Shishkin as our guest today, and he's a very interesting man. He's doing very interesting things regarding media, regarding news, I should say, because he is actually doing what Mike and I believe should be done. He is presenting news just as news. In other words, giving you what happened and letting you read and make up your own mind about what it means. So, Kira, yeah, anything you
Thank
want to
you.
say?
Thank
Yeah,
you for having me. Mike Royce, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me. And I really enjoyed our first conversation a couple of weeks ago around sort of the need to build what we're building. And it's been really reassuring to find resonance with you
Mm-hmm.
around the problem that we solve, which is information overload and news overload specifically, and the fact that in this current point in time, you have to read a lot to learn very little, and we're trying to flip that model upside down and to enable folks to read less but know more. And so the way we do it is we take away all the commentary, all the bias, all the noise from media that's become indistinguishable from news. So we just give you the foundational facts, the what, where, and when of a topic, so that you have a building blocks to your own opinion, but you don't have to choose an opinion off the shelf, whether it's a red opinion or a blue opinion, doesn't really matter. These days, you have to read everything to figure out where you stand, and you have to kind of undo the bias that you're exposed to. We're pioneering a solution that is just giving you what we call uncolored news. There's no red, there's no blue tints to it. It just gives you the foundational building blocks for you to make up your own mind.
yeah. One of the
That's
things
how
that
I think
I
news should be.
discovered,
And oh, sorry, Mike, go
one of the
ahead.
things that I discovered that I wasn't clear upon. Um, I presumed it was like other platforms where you had to go to a site and you'd have to discern where you want to go, et cetera, et cetera. No, this is actually um, uh, regularly you receive these reports on your phone, and they're broken down into sections. So this way you can quickly scan through what you're interested in. And in a matter of 2 to 3 minutes, you can literally receive the primary information of the day. And that was something I wasn't expecting. I was very pleased to see.
I'd like to point out to the audience that we're talking about an app called Informed. An app, is it an app or the company is called Informed, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't even call it an app because, as Mike has pointed out, we sort of avoid the traditional channels of the
Right.
website or an application. We operate a toll-free number in the United States. We're also active in Canada, uh, and it's similar to one of those big old traditional American toll-free numbers, like 800 Flowers or 800 Got Junk, where you kind of know the use case that they stand for. So in our case, we operate 844-406 info, which is the toll-free number for essential foundational news to make up your own opinion from. And so our entire business is operated through the channel of SMS, and folks text in order to onboard, which is very quick and simple. Um, and then the whole experience is through the SMS platform. They never have to sort of remember a password or download an application or go to a website or get involved with their email. They never have to do any of those things. The entire experience is run and the value is delivered through SMS.
Yeah, and the good thing is you have links in the SMS, which will take them to an expanded version of the story.
That's right. And we focus on primary sources a lot. So we try to pack in, as Mike kind of hinted at, we try to pack in a lot of insight into the least amount of words possible. So we kind of think
Mhm.
of it as maximum clarity in minimal words. That's sort of our whole editorial value. And generally, sending you to another article isn't going to give you more information. It's going to give actually the same information we gave you, but in more words. So what we tend to do, and I think about 30% of our references go to primary sources. So you don't go to another article that's talking about it, some pundit talking about an issue, but you're actually going straight to the source of, Census Bureau, the White House, CDC, United Nations, original researchers. You're going straight to the source. Sometimes we even reference Supreme Court cases or lawsuits that take you straight to the source of actually digging into the primary source of the material instead of talking about somebody else, instead of having somebody else talk to you about the issue with their own inadvertent bias. So the way that the executive briefing looks, and that's how we call our texts, is they're always very short. We always send one message at most per day because we're trying to maximize kind of coverage, but minimize its footprint and the news footprint on your attention span because you don't have to, you don't have to spend a lot of time on news. It shouldn't have to be this way. You have other things to do and worry about in your life. And so we send one message. It's extremely simple. It's extremely concise. That's our whole kind of North Star and our whole goal. And it's always around 1,500 characters. We just structurally cannot send larger messages, but we like this constraint that we put on ourselves because it limits us to the most essential things. And every bullet is a summary, not just of a single article, it's a summary of the entire issue, which sometimes spans many articles, dozens or hundreds of articles in the same issue. That's what gives us the confidence to say both what are the facts that are agreed upon across the entire sort of reporting spectrum, and what is the most important because we read such a huge volume of articles, we know what is less important and more important on any given day. And so we offer that curation and that concise clarity while also giving you the link out to learn some more and go straight to the primary source, to the horse's mouth.
Right.
Yeah, there's
So basically, it's
one issue. Go ahead.
it's a summary of the facts. That's how I see it. A summary of facts.
Now, here's something that you haven't mentioned yet, which I know would want to get to, is the process in which you do this is you use AI and you also use human elements to basically sift through the information to make sure that either side, the AI or the human side, is kind of in agreement with each other. But the one thing that I'm yet not sure about is the fact that you do not use sources that you consider religious. And I can understand you don't want heavily biased information. I mean, I've had that conversation with other people before that they're trying to present something and they keep falling back on religious doctrine and they lose the people they're talking to because they can't encapsulate it. But at the same time, to ignore that entire section of information, I'm presuming, I think is hazardous if you're looking for the full truth. The question is, can you clear that up for me?
Yeah, I wouldn't say we avoid any particular source in the sense that we target a certain source and say, "Hey, you are not serious. You don't have the information." Is we have a model that prioritizes original reporting, and so if we don't have access to a primary source, which we'll always prioritize, and in some quarter to a third of the cases, we're actually able to get our hands on primary sources, which gives us the ultimate sort of connection to the facts as they are being reported. And we can say, okay, well, the CDC announced certain things. We are citing the CDC. We're not citing Fox News or citing CNN talking about what the CDC has announced. And so, in a lot of the cases, we're able to tap into primary sources. Secondary to that is we prioritize original reporting. And a lot of companies, a lot of news companies that we sort of think of as the big media players don't actually do original reporting. They do what kind of I distinguish as journalism, where they do a lot of editorial review and they do a lot of synthesis of known information, and they provide opinion, bias, summary, synthesis, But what they're not doing is they're not on the ground, on site, whether that's Afghanistan, or whether that's in Iran, whether that's in Ukraine, whether that's on Wall Street on the trading floors. They're not on the ground of the issue talking to the people. And so that is the foundational reporting that we prioritize secondarily after primary sources.
Okay.
And there's actually a very limited amount of companies out there that do that level of original reporting. Some of them you know very well, Associated Press, Reuters. There's a lot of you know horsepower in those companies around original reporting. There are also a lot of companies that don't actually do reporting at all, and they actually are synthesizing information that's been reported on already and coming up with kind of their own analysis, interpretation, commentary. And so we have not seen a lot of religious organizations or religious news. The one that comes to mind is the like I think it's called World Sift. It's a Christian news organization, and we're actually not seeing a lot of examples where they have access to reporting capabilities for one reason or another. So it's not something about them being religious that we sort of shun. It's something about them not having the type of information fidelity that we absolutely prioritize.
Well,
Plus, they put their own
if if
spin on it anyway.
if a report comes out, let's say it's a primary report, it's a first, but it is meant to misdirect people. In other words, it's a lie. But so the thing is that you could end up acquiring this lie simply because there's nobody to discount it, and it just goes out there. So you can't actually um, look at this information and dig in like a journalist. All you can do is basically acquire what is what you consider worthy news and keep the bias out, even though the bias may be actually inherent.
Yeah, I think one of the things that helps us a lot avoiding um, avoiding misleading reporting, which of course
Mm-hmm.
always happens in the industry we've inherited, and the way we're able to go around that is through kind of two things. One is the aggregation of a large base of reporting. So we don't actually ever rely on a single source unless it's a primary source that is saying, okay, well, CDC announced these things, so we can say, okay, well, we know CDC has done that because we see that. But if, for example, we have a reporter that says the CDC announced something and we don't have that from a primary source, we cannot trace that, we would wait and see. Usually it happens very quickly if there is a mass of reporting around this, meaning like, is this the only reporter reporting this? If so, we would be hesitant and we usually wouldn't deploy that information. But if we are now seeing the same issue reverberated across independent sources that are able to corroborate it, then we can actually say, okay, well, this isn't just a single source. There's a mass of consensus agreement on this fact base, and that's what gives us the confidence around, okay, this actually happened, and we actually, have the facts to show it. And this model of kind of like mass aggregation of reporting hasn't failed us. Doesn't mean that it could not. There's always human error. There's always journalistic error. There's plenty of these things in the industry. Um, but so far, this model of primary source primacy and then reporting aggregation as kind of a second order has been working very well for us, where we have not observed any issues in the quality of our kind of insight, and we have also not heard from any of our subscribers that they have been seeing issues in our quality, which is obviously our North Star goal at the end of the day, is making sure that the folks um, are not complaining and are not finding fault in what we do. And we are able to boast a very large spectrum of users from, the right side, from the left side, from, you know, immigrant, domestic, international, domestic. There's a real range of opinion that we're able to contain within the same um, platform that we operate. And so the fact that we haven't been hearing, um, anything but positive feedback is giving us reinforcement that our approach and our model is working in the way that we expect it to.
Hmm. Well, the thing is that you're not doing any actual reporting yourself. You're actually acquiring reports, and you're discerning based upon the quality of that source, and also, as you say, the aggregation of it, the number of it, and also the reiteration, etc. And you're acquiring all this. So the thing is that I'm curious as to whether or not at some point you might expand and actually generate your own reporters and send them out, or do you simply wish to basically process the general news and keep doing what you're doing?
Being an exchange, basically.
Yeah, because here's the thing. I very much like what you do. Okay, and the thing is that every system can go into failure. There's everything that we've created can go into the weeds. What I like about this is that what I like about your company, and I had a chance to really appreciate it, is when I went back to my own popular news sources, I was able to use it as a measuring stick and actually say, "Oh, okay, I heard that before. That's here. That's okay. That's affirmation. That's." So I was able to confirm my news sources that I was following, even though they're opinionated. I was able to confirm them, and I don't know. I mean, that must have that subject
Well, even
must have
those
come up.
biased outlets do have some truth in the story they're reporting. They will twist things. Sometimes they'll add something on. For example, this morning I saw an article about an illegal alien who had been caught because he distributed thousands of masks, I think it was, to protesters on Saturday. But then at the bottom it said he was found dead shortly thereafter. Now I
Mhm.
went and I checked with Grok. I like using Grok, and it verified the story was true about him having been arrested and released on bond. But there's no evidence that says that he'd been found dead. So they gave half truth and half falsehood on that report. I don't even remember what the site, it was. Somewhere on on a social media site.
Kira, I'm going to put you. I'm going to actually ask you a question that's going to require an opinion, not this neutral stuff that you're playing with. Okay, ABC got rid of Terry Moran
Uh,
because he called Trump a world-class hater. Now, here's the thing. When he was confronted about that, he publicly declared that he felt that all newscasters had to be inherently biased, which I was talking to Roy about this, and I go, your head must have spun when you heard that, because that is like absolutely contra to your mission. So what you are familiar with that, right? I mean, it is in your wheelhouse, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we've seen, and this is part of the problem that we address with Informed, we've seen such a rise and stronghold of personality news, which is um, the public demanding not just a dry kind of clinical robotic readout of the facts or of the kind of the headlines, but the um, the interpretation through anchor personality of current events. And I know that there's a lot of people out there, and maybe this is even a majority, that actually prefer to get their news from a person that looks like them or that they look up to in some capacity or that they're attracted to in whatever appeal way. And they prefer to receive news from from that horse's mouth. And so I think when it comes to that statement by the ABC anchor, is the industry has sort of morphed into this place where you need to have a personality, you need to have an opinion, you need to have a bias in order to have a following, because otherwise, how do you distinguish yourself in this sea of noise that is news media? And so, in our case, why we exist is we don't believe in that. Um, we don't believe in that at all. We don't believe that having a personality is healthy in news, and we actually believe in that more clinical, robotic, dry readout of the facts, because that is like pure, uncolored, kind of factual information. And so we may not appeal to the masses of people out there that are seeking that anchor, that personality that's Tucker Carlson or some sort of
Mm.
Fox News, people who are seeking that, have that in abundance on cable television and many other more traditional sources. We target a person that it has a very particular behavior. They're looking for, they cannot, simply put, the person we target is the person we serve is a person that wants to be informed, but cannot stand being influenced. And that is specifically the niche that we serve, with kind of a way that we relate information that is highly efficient, and yet doesn't demand that you pick a side, and doesn't demand that you pick an opinion, and doesn't lead with an opinion that you then have to process and say, do I agree with this or do I not agree with this? Do I need to read what the other side is saying? We are presenting a kind of a building blocks of your opinion where you don't have to right away pick a side. You can actually just read this information, consume it, and gosh, sometimes you don't even need to have an opinion right away. You can just hear what's going on and just pause. You don't need to immediately say yes or
Just be
no.
aware.
Yeah, just be informed, and your opinion will come to
Right.
you eventually, but you don't need to have it forced upon you through the traditional channels.
Yeah. And it's not for people who are too lazy to think, of which there are too many people in the world these days. They're too lazy to think they want to be given an opinion and then they can run with that. But you are appealing to, shall we say, a higher strata of society, or of intellect that just wants the facts, and they want to know what's going on. Period. Not necessarily what you think it means, but they can either make up their own mind or just know that, okay, this is out there. It may or may not be of use to me later.
But there's still a need for that newscaster who walks you through a process in an area that you're not at all familiar with. And the thing is, like, guys like Tucker Carlson, you mentioned him. He may be, you know, um, polarized to some extent, but at the same time, I find his information to be very I don't know.
Factual, fact based.
Well, it's here's the thing. If you're not in the business of understanding certain politics or war or this, that, or the other thing, what's going on in that country, you never even heard of that place. You need some sort of background, and just getting the raw data isn't enough, at least for me. I mean,
Well, I think what you're saying is people want an expert telling them something.
well, that's why I like Kira's system, because he talks about the vanilla news giving you choice as to what you're going to think about it. But the thing is that, again, I used that information base in conjunction with the news systems that are biased that I follow, and I was able to pick it up really fast because I already had a primer. So I'm not going to leave my biased little news thing. I, I, I find I need that. Okay. But at the same time, I can measure it with your with your platform and say, okay, yeah, I got that. Yeah, yeah. I'm not sure about that. So it's like, I think you've given us a hell of a tool, but ultimately the purpose of your tool is for a person to make a decision. And that is bias in and of itself. So the thing is that sometimes you need help to make a decision, because if you're out there and you're doing blue collar work like I used to do, and you come home and there's a complex problem, it's outside of your purview. It's outside of your wheelhouse, and you need some guidance. But you, your platform gives me something else to look at and look at it and say, I mean, I've caught a couple of things already that I wasn't really happy with. So now I'm starting to weigh and measure my news platforms based upon this is more in agreement with informed than this other guy is.
Oh
Because
yeah,
this guy's
informed gives you the base from which to build.
yes, it's a measuring stick, I think.
Yeah.
But the average guy does need help walking through this morass of news, because it is we've been lied to so much and cheated so much as a people, regardless of your political background. And having something neutral to hold on to, like your platform, and it allows us to find solid ground. So it might sound like I'm not agreeing with your process. I actually am. Coming at it from a different angle, though. It's helping me make choices, which is what, based upon other platforms and stuff as well. So I don't think it's on some sort of ice field floating in the ocean all by itself. I think it is a bridge to other news sources that allows you to digest it.
It also, I think, helps you find out, from what you said earlier, it helps you discern who is embellishing it a little too much or who's putting on a little bit of a lie.
For me, it
I
does.
love, yeah, no, I love hearing that, and I think the analogy of seafaring is not amiss here. We are our ships. We're all navigating our ships through just the ocean, the depth of
Mm.
information overload, and in that sea of information overload, there's a lot of misinformation. There's a lot of
Mm.
rip currents. There's a lot of you name it. Large waves of misinformation. And what informed is always meant to be is meant to be a compass. Doesn't mean you don't want to use all the other tools your ship may have to offer, but there is one of the most important tools, which is the compass. And that's just what we do. We try to limit ourselves from, providing analysis, from providing interpretation, from providing personality, from providing, deep dives. um, you have many other tools to do that, and those are very competitive spaces. The space for analysis, the space for kind of geopolitical advisory. These are huge industries that are all, they may seem to kind of a naked eye as a part of the same thing, but they're all completely different parts of the ocean or parts of the ship. We
Mm-hmm.
specifically focus on this very primary, but very, very, very small, but also the most foundational part, which is the compass tool. And so we think of ourselves as the compass for the era of information overload.
Well, the first day that we got our report from Informed, I immediately called up Roy because I was excited. I said, "Did you get the news? Did you get the news?" And I was just, first of all, it was easy because it's just another text, so to speak. So there's nothing to do, like you said. And literally in 3 minutes, I had, first of all, there was important news that I probably wouldn't have gotten anywhere else. Stuff about um, which groups of people believe which news sources and so forth, what the percentages were. I thought that was intriguing. So yes, I very much like Informed. I think it is. I think it's a labor saver for the average man. The average guy goes to work, he does his thing. Woman goes to work, does her thing. She comes home, she puts the TV on, and in a half an hour, she's been spoon fed a bunch of emotional stuff. Whereas in your particular case, she reads it, she's treated like an adult. This is what happened. These are the numbers. This is what happened. Do you want more information? Yeah, because that one is important to me. And it's just, it is so simple. It makes you ask the question, why hasn't anybody else done this before? It's that it's that much of a an element. You know, it is just this is like Roy said, we've complained about the news and so forth, and that we as podcasters don't have a reliable news source. And we love our news sources, but we don't trust our own people.
Yeah, I tell people, this is what we've heard. I don't know if it's true or not, or it may or may be embellished or whatever. Or sometimes we say maybe we're being misinformed. Let us know. If we're giving you the wrong information, we are not stating that we are. What we say is the absolute truth. This is what we think based on what the information we've got.
Right.
And by the way, for Mike to call me that day, Mike is very jaded most of the time. When he called me, all excited because he'd gotten his first text from Informed, and he was all happy about it. I knew that it was really, really great.
It was kind of like the equivalent of stepping into a new realm, like going through the looking glass, and all of a sudden, bang! And as a matter of fact, on some of our podcasts, I refer to your platform. I even read one paragraph out to the general public, and we told people about your platform because I'm that impressed by it.
Oh, well, thank you very much. And it means a lot to sort of find aligned and sort of mission sharing people. And it means a lot. It means a lot. And in fact, if anyone who is listening now or, will be listening to this in the future is interested in joining our media mindfulness, news mindfulness movement, it's very simple. All you have to do is text "Hey," just the greeting "Hey" to our toll-free number, which is 844-406-INFO, which is the same as 844-406-4636. And anyone who's obviously coming through Mike and Roy is getting VIP treatment.
Yeah. By the way, thank you very much, Kira, for this invention, and thank you for all your good work. And I know that it hasn't been easy because anything this meaningful usually requires, a whole process that can be painful and sad, because you're fighting the world. But just keep it up. You're doing a great job.
Going back to something Michael said a minute ago, has there been anyone who tried something like this earlier and maybe failed?
I feel like the thing we do is so simple, and it's almost a surprise that no one really does what we do.
Yeah.
I think the biggest innovation that we have, apart from the technology, apart from the process, apart from the everything we've talked about, is just the idea of can we put the reader back as the priority stakeholder? What happened with a lot of other solutions that have sort of set out on the same path of giving clarity to newsreaders is they've been corrupted by advertisement. And it's very hard to deny it. It's very hard to refuse advertisement revenue because the pockets are so deep. And as soon as a media platform is approached with, "Hey, let us advertise on your real estate," us advertise on your webpage or on your platform, it's very hard to say no for a lot of companies because of just how much more money is being offered than what you can get from subscribers as a subscription. And I think there are a lot of projects that I've observed over the years that have started with this noble mission, but have been just unable to resist the pool to advertisement and sponsorship revenue. And
Hmm.
that's a really big thing that sets us apart, is that we are more mission driven than we are profit driven, and we are seeking to, you know, be very very harsh, very strict on our principles that, you know, we're putting the reader first. And I do not imagine that there is any way, and I think you'd have to really, fool yourself to believe this. I don't imagine there's any way that we can introduce advertisement into the news media process without sacrificing the trust, the credibility, and the relationship with the reader, because the reader is not asking for advertisement. The reader is not asking to be solicited to. There are so many other places in the reader's life where they are being solicited to, they are being advertised to. In fact, it's anywhere in the internet. It's the infrastructure that we use to access the internet. It's everywhere where we are solicited. But when you're looking for factual information to make up your own opinion, it is unacceptable to be solicited in that process and in that moment. And to encounter advertisement in the moment of factual inquiry is probably the number one problem that we are out there to solve. Is it's predatory, and it's extremely tone deaf. And I frankly, I mean, I lament the world in which we inherited, a structure where nowadays, if you go on any website that has anything to do with news, the vast majority of what you're going to see is actually advertisement. And it's going to be everywhere. It's going to be in between paragraphs. It's going to be in between sentences. It's going to be on the left side, on the right side. It's going to be everywhere. So to your question, Michael, more and more directly, is um, we've seen people start with our mission, but lose to the appeal of the advertiser, which fundamentally reshapes the entire mission because the incentives become aligned with the advertiser and not the reader. And our main innovation is that we are categorically not going to do that. And I would rather, uh, retire informed than see it built into another ad engine.
Question. Um, you are essentially going against the grain. Everything that you mentioned is mainstream. You are not. So the thing is that it's. I would think that elements in that generate this biased news. Somebody sees you as a potential threat. So my question is, have you experienced any real resistance from any organization or group of people that to make it to impose a failure upon you?
It's hard to imagine, to your point, that a lot of the incumbent sort of media solutions will be happy about what we're doing, because what we're doing is, you know, is we're trying to replace them. And we're not really trying to replace them because they're entertainment for the most part. We're trying to serve the use case that they proclaim to serve in a much more fundamentally different way. And so I think on principle level and a conceptual level, no one is happy with what we're doing in terms of the big kind of incumbent corporate media empires. I don't think anyone's happy with what we're doing. But on the other side, that's when I was referencing, I mean that's the corporate entities. But when you talk about people, I have not met a lot of people who aren't very supportive of what we're doing. And we're talking, across the spectrum of news readers. People, I think, are are waking up to the reality that they live in, which is the reality of information overload, the reality of misinformation every step of the way, the reality of being solicited, being influenced every step of the way. I think as large entities and structures that govern our society, we maybe are encountering some resistance, or I think we're going to encounter more resistance as we continue to grow and scale. But when it comes to the human element, the humans that make up every structure, we're
Mhm.
seeing a lot of resonance. We're hearing a lot of resonance with people because they are so fed up with what they're seeing and what they're consuming. So, for example, you have somebody who, let's say, works at a Fox News, and now Fox News is a very biased organization. They have their own sort of perspective that is popular. Um, and maybe Fox News itself is an entity say, you know what, we don't want Inform to exist because we would rather have our channels be the go-to channels for information. But when you ask the Fox News reporter, the person, themselves, you realize that they are just as fed up with the reality of being solicited, the reality of being advertised, the reality of being swayed, whether in that case, that person feels swayed by, left-leaning media, or not. Everybody's overwhelmed, and everybody is frustrated with how impure the information channels are. And you look to the other side of the spectrum, you go to, I don't know, maybe CNN is an equivalent example. Maybe it's not a good one, but on the CNN side, maybe CNN itself doesn't want us to exist because we are again replacing a use case that they are used to dominating. But if you talk to the people that make up CNN, they're like, yeah, when we write news, it's so hard for us because there's all this noise from every other side. There's all these advertisements, there's all these solicitations, there's all this sponsorship bias. There's just so much noise that it's hard to get the signal. And they're also seeking as people. They're seeking what we're building. And so across the population of users and readers and just across the people part of the equation, we're seeing resounding, echoing resonance around that what we're building is very valuable. We have a lot of individual journalists across the spectrum of the news industry actually using our platform to inform themselves, because what they're going to do is similar to what we do, except we're going to do it better. But when you talk about the entities, right, the big corporates, I agree that there's going to be a lot of friction around us replacing what is their territory. Now, that being said, I think their territory is entertainment, while our territory is information. And so we're definitely a much more, we're going after a much smaller piece of land, a smaller
Mhm.
piece of territory than they lay claim to. They lay claim to a huge amount of kind of like media consumption land. Well, we are just focusing on the small corner of the universe of this media consumption that is just the getting the facts piece. But I think as we grow, we will encounter more friction,
I'd
that's for
say that
sure.
eventually your land, the land you occupy is going to grow. I see you and Chris Pavlovsky, who owns the Rumble platform. I see you two as the heroes of alternative media. Okay, he is a free speech advocate, and he has, for example, Rumble is no longer allowed in Brazil because of the dictates of that judge who seems to run that country. X was also going to be banned, but X bowed bowed the knee to this judge, and now it's still shown in Brazil. It's still active in Brazil. Rumble is not, but Rumble, just like you and Informed, are working on principle. Now, I think it also helps that Pavlovsky is a billionaire, multi-billionaire. You, I don't know what your exact thing is, but you're involved in crypto. You've been involved in enterprise ventures, venture capital funds. I mean, you've got what is it? You were in Stanford's accelerated executive MBA program and executive AI workbook. You were listed under Forbes under 30, which is a big honor. Okay, I told you, Mike, this podcast is bringing us into touch with people that are way above our status.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think that you are independent enough that you can afford to stick to your principles and not be swayed by the money that they're trying to throw at you.
I want to say one more thing. And this is information that Kira may not necessarily be privy to. Last week, when you talked to us on the phone and just got to know us a little bit, I sensed a concern that you might consider us to be a bad choice to talk to. And it might be because we are definitely conservative, right wing people. All right. So I just want you to know that the right wing, I believe, for the most part, will embrace you. Not because they're right wing, but because they're desperate for the truth. And I think there's plenty of people on the left that are also desperate for the truth, but they have no access. So
Yeah.
even though there is polarization in this country, I think down deep inside, the average person needs you.
Yeah, you
So
may be
it's
united.
okay to reach out to people on the right, people on the left, and you might very well be surprised that you will be accepted.
Thank you, and it means a lot to sort of, be able to be invited and to be able to come and speak with you about this because it's a passion of mine. And when I think of our mission, it cuts across political color. It cuts across the red and the blue entirely. And so I have no reservations in talking to kind of the whole wide spectrum of political leaning because we are not serving one side or another. We are serving people that are across everywhere. And to me, it's a supreme kind of need or a more fundamental need, perhaps, to political affiliation because it's different, right? It's what we do is different. We we try to help people be informed, and that is a building block to building whatever opinion you want. But I think when maybe I'll put it this way. I think the part of the problem in our country right now is we are seeing this radicalization and polarization that is becoming more stark. And I think the real risk is when we start not sharing a fact base any longer, not no longer sharing what we consider to be ground truths. And I think we've gotten there already, and I think we've been there for a couple of years. This huge polarization of like what is actually happening before you have an opinion about the subject. What do we actually all agree is happening in this specific particular event or in this particular time or in this particular scenario? People no longer have a shared fact base. And I think that is the really dangerous part of how we get to political violence, how we get to sort of, civil uprising and, civil violence, how we get to what happened in Minnesota. It's very tragic. And so before even considering what opinion you're going to have, is it going to be more left-leaning, is it going to be more right-leaning when it comes to politics? Can we get everybody to drink from the same fountain, pure, uncolored water? Can we just get folks to reference the same fact base? And we
Right.
take a lot of care to obviously provide a provide a source, provide this fountain that has no attempt to influence your opinion, but it is meant to serve the entire spectrum with the essential facts of what you need to make your own opinion in the first place. Because one of the things that is not making your own opinion is subscribing to Fox News or subscribing to something on the left side and saying, "Okay, I'm just going to read this." That's not making up your own opinion. That is taking it off the shelf. Can you arrive at your own right opinion or left opinion with the facts that we give you? That's your prerogative. But let us help you make up your own mind rather than again take the opinion off the shelf of political options.
Yeah, I
Excellent.
mean, the people who are best informed until now, until the advent of informed, were the people who would look and listen to and watch the left and the right, and then they would compare and make up their own minds. I think that what you're doing is going to maybe narrow the gap between left and right, so that if everybody is drinking, as you put it, from the same source, then you might still lean that way or you lean that way, but you're going to be closer than you were previously, where you only heard one side or the other. Because most people, unfortunately, will only subscribe to Fox News. Other people will only listen to MSNBC. They're never going to come together. And even Fox News is now, not what you would call right. I would say Newsmax and what's the other one, Mike?
OAN?
OAN. Those are more to the right,
Blaze.
I'd say.
Well, the thing is that let's not forget that having the same fact base that you can rely on, it's not just about making a choice. It's also about not making certain choices. And, the thing is that I think it'll keep people from knee jerking, uh, due to, incomplete information,
Yeah.
so it's like, yeah. So like, if let's say if I have, a particular propensity to go in this direction and somebody has, it goes in the opposite direction, we talk and all of a sudden we have the same numbers, and then we could talk about how those numbers are more appropriate to one opinion or another.
You may
I
find
think
more common ground, basically.
exactly. And the thing, I'm sorry, Kira, but your platform is obviously good. It's difficult to describe it as, outside of itself. It's so elemental. It's so basic. It's like you read it, you got it, you move on. That's it. It's like
And then
trying to
tomorrow you got more
prove that
coming up.
air exists. It's there. It's like I'm breathing. So there we
Yeah,
go.
and you don't have to spend 2 hours looking at this, that, and the other thing.
Oh my
You
God.
got a few minutes, you get what you need. If you have time, you go explore it further. If you don't, you have the basic
Absolutely.
information that you wanted.
It's
It's a great platform. It's
it's
a
a
great
fantastic,
concept. Yeah. So
fantastic. You did a great job.
really, yeah.
Thank you, gentlemen. That means a lot. It means a lot to hear from you.
By the way, part of the notes I have here on you say you speak 4 languages. Out of curiosity and having nothing to do with anything we've spoken of, what languages do you speak?
Yeah,
Obviously,
so
English is one.
I speak a little bit of English, but I was born and raised in Ukraine, in Kiev, and so
Ah,
I speak Ukrainian. Um,
okay.
but I was actually raised in a part of Kiev that is also Russian speaking, and that was a thing for a while in Ukraine. I feel like that's harder to come by now. But I also speak Russian. Um,
Okay.
and I lived in Israel for almost a decade in my life, and I
Yeah.
learned Hebrew when I
Okay.
was there. My Hebrew is probably just terrible at this point, but that's the fourth.
Boy,
Well, that's an unusual array. Also, most people will be like English, Spanish, Italian, French. That those are the most common ones. Yeah. I mean, I
Ellie,
speak English, Portuguese, and Spanish, but I used to speak French, but I haven't.
Ah.
Je ne parle pas français il y a plus de 45 ans, année, whatever.
yeah.
I haven't spoken
You
French in
too,
over
pal.
45 years.
Yeah,
But
I'm yours as well. It
but
was
no, it's
through
always
all the
good to know extra languages, and it helps you understand the way people speak. Also, it helps you get into their heads as to how they think in lots of
It's
cases.
another thing that your process actually, that is not just English based. It's actually you go throughout the world and you gather data everywhere. So it's pretty cool.
Yes.
Yeah,
So
that's what news gathering is. You don't. I mean, unless you're based only in the U.S. or only in Kansas or only in South America, you're going to get news from all over the world and then distribute it.
Okay.
Is there anything else you'd like to tell us about? You'd like the audience to know?
Well, this has been a nice conversation. I super appreciate you bringing me on. Maybe I'll just mention again if anyone is interested in seeing Informed for themselves, anyone who's a friend of the show is a friend of Informed, and so it's very simply just text the word "Hey" to 844-406-4636.
And I highly recommend the platform. Highly recommend it. You won't have to spend money on on buying your opinion magazines and so forth, and or spending time watching, trying to watch news programs, whichever news programs you watch. It's a big time saver, and it keeps you informed, as the name says.
No matter how much we talk about the platform, to be honest with you, it will astound you the moment you start looking at it yourself. It is
Yes.
far more powerful than any of the descriptions that we've given you.
And I hope this little podcast helps you, helps spark something.
Oh yeah, we're going to be fundamental to his career.
Not many of us, but hopefully it'll start here. I know you're appearing on other podcasts too. I hope each podcast adds to your enterprise and helps it grow. And
Thank you,
keeps it
Roy.
healthy, basically.
Thank you
Yeah.
for being on our podcast because
We're very
it is-
grateful for you to come on.
influential people like yourself being on our podcast will help us grow. And, you're doing more good for us than we're doing for you, I think. So thank you very much.
I mean, we've had
It's a
him,
pleasure to
we've
be
had
here.
Alan Swart, we've had America's psychiatrist on. Yeah.
Yeah, she was great.
It's such a
So,
pleasure to be here, and I'm very grateful for you guys bringing me on. So, thank you.
I have an idea on a future podcast suggested to Roy that we might be able to gather two of our guests that we've interviewed and put you guys together to talk to each other.
if you have some common ground somewhere.
Yeah, well, we there's a number
Adam
of
Swart.
very interesting people that
Adam Swart. His thing is
Yes.
influencing things.
well,
Yeah.
but the thing
He
is
was
that
one of the first companies to hire people to do events and so forth. But he has exposed he's exposed what is happening where political parties are now hiring people to make believe that their support is a lot bigger than it actually is.
there's a lady that is running an organization specifically for independent voters to be able to talk to each other. I think that would be very close to what you're
Yeah.
doing. She's trying to
Independent forum.
avoid political talk bias. Sorry, I can't seem to pronounce that
Well,
word.
she's trying to get everybody
Yes.
to be a little more independent
Kinda
rather
like
than
you.
rely on the two
Trying
parties.
to keep the conversation neutral. So I thought that would be kind of
Like
interesting.
you. Yeah, that would probably be a better match,
Good.
actually. Anyway, well, hopefully that might happen someday. We'll see.
Yes, it's just an idea.
Anyway, thank you so much for coming on, and thank you for your patience with at the beginning of the program when you couldn't get on because we hadn't given you the proper studio invite. But
He
anyway,
did come on, so he's
anything
pretty
else you
happy.
want to say? Or that's it. We are going to promote you once in a while in the future too.
Absolutely.
Okay. We'll be mentioning Informed, and we're probably going to mention Informed a lot more because that's where we're going to get most of our news from. Now
He doesn't know how to end the show. That's his biggest problem.
What?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that, and it's been absolutely delightful. Thank you again for having me on, and I'm excited to bring this conversation and share our mission with your broader community, and it's an honor to be welcomed like this. So
Bless
thank you
you
very
and
much,
Well, good luck
Mike
in the
and
future.
Roy,
Continue good luck.
and
Big-
we'll be back in touch.
I hope so.
Nice.
All right. Okay.
That's
Awesome.
All
news.
right. Let me just see. Once we disconnect, just hold on a minute and make sure that everything is uploaded because I don't want you to have to.
It's very technical.
Yeah, it's not
Yeah.
that technical, but it looks like we're 99%. Okay, we're going to say goodnight now. Goodbye now.
Okay.
Thank you for listening to The View from Here, from behind enemy lines. We've been talking to Kira Shishkin, the head of Informed, the CEO of Informed, and that's a news organization I highly, highly recommend. Good night, or good afternoon, or good morning, whatever time you're watching this.